Good afternoon, I'm Richard Newbury. Reports are coming in that yesterday's rioting in central London have now spread to large areas of the capital and parts of the southeast. These reports started late last night, and we are at the moment receiving unconfirmed reports that London has been sealed off by the military, who were mobilised 2 days ago. We now have this report from central London, which was recorded in the early hours of the morning.
It's quite unbelievable what's happening today. Mass hysteria has hit London. Riots have been happening all day. Nobody seems to know what the cause of the violence is, but it seems to have hit the entire capital. Emergency services are at full stretch, and riot police have engaged in dangerous street battles with violent mobs. Today the military was said to have been dispatched, but we have learnt that's not going to happen. They've sealed off most of London as far as the M25 motorway. But we don't know why that's happened. People are scared. People are terrified.
We have since lost contact with our reporter, so we're unable to bring you a live feed. The Prime Minister has dismissed claims that violence reported on the continent is in some way linked to civil disorder in Britain, although it would seem we are in no way isolated in our reports of widespread rioting, which has been reported throughout Europe and Asia, where many governments have declared a national state of emergency and appealed for help from the international community. We have a report we believe to be from an Italian news station recorded sometime over the last 2 days, which was subsequently leaked onto the internet, which I think we're now going to show. However, I must warn you, this footage contains disturbing images.
Siamo in onda? Buonasera, siamo in diretta dalla città di Napoli, dove tutto sembra essere peggiorato. L'esercito ha imposto il coprifuoco e tutti sembrano essere agli arresti domiciliari. Questa epidemia sconosciuta sembra essersi diffusa molto più rapidamente del previsto, nonostante i tentativi del governo di bloccare l'accesso del paese e di tentare l'uscita di questa epidemia dalla città. La città di Napoli sembra essere un campo di guerra. Molte persone la notte scorsa hanno tentato di lasciare la città. Ma non tutti ci sono riusciti. Alcune persone si sono dirette verso sud, provocando così numerose code sulle autostrade.
The Italian Prime Minister has strongly denied the validity of the footage and called it a shameful attempt to undermine the government. Now, we'll shortly be going live to our correspondent in India, where there have been reports in the past 24 hours of a deadly disease spreading rapidly across much of the country. As yet, the cause and nature of the disease are unknown. We now go to our India correspondent live in New Delhi, where the situation is rapidly worsening. So, what is happening there on the streets, Jason?
Well, yes, Richard, currently the disease is still unknown. We have had reports of rapid infection followed by toxic shock soon after the victims' hearts have stopped. However, these reports are largely unconfirmed. It also seems that mass hysteria and panic has turned into violence, causing mass riots, involving literally tens of thousands of people. We've also been told that victims of the disease have become very violent and also responsible for hundreds, if not thousands, of deaths. It is also said that they attack any humans that they come in contact with, even friends and family.
Do they know how the disease is spread yet?
No, unfortunately, we still have no solid evidence of how the disease has spread. Although anything at this point would be pure speculation, doctors, however, have been trying to examine victims in the quarantine, but this is proving to be difficult because they are not able to be sedated properly and they are very violent. Despite reports that victims have been dying within hours of contracting the virus.
Do you have any idea of the current number of victims in India? Have the Indian government released any of that information yet?
Well, yes, as you know, India has one of the biggest populations in the world, and this disease, we've actually been told this disease has spread across the Mumbai slums already, and there's been reported outbreaks in at least 5 other major cities. There's also current estimates by the government that indicates that there are 900,000 casualties in the last 24 hours.
So what warnings and help are the Indian government giving the people?
Well, the Indian government is urging people to stay calm and stay indoors. They've been told people not to go near any victims, only to go out in extreme emergency, and otherwise people to stay in their homes at all times. All foreign nationals have been told to return to their countries as soon as possible, and all inbound flights have been diverted away from Indian airspace.
Well, I'm afraid we're going to leave it there. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Richard.
We're joined in our studio now by Alec Charles, spokesman for the Ministry of Defence. Mr. Charles, thank you for joining us. Now, do you think the military's handling of the current crisis has been sufficient?
Yes, our response to the crisis has been swift. We've been working hard to bring the situation under control, and we're doing everything possible to contain the problem. I can confirm that a buffer zone has been set up around London to ensure the violence doesn't spread any further.
Yes, but Mr. Charles, the government has been heavily criticised for not redeploying military units stationed overseas here in the UK. Now, these troops account for a large percentage of our military strength. In light of the worsening situation, will this option now be reconsidered?
Our forces overseas will remain exactly where they are. Our commitments haven't changed, and we've assured the international community that Britain will not be bringing her troops back home. This is a global problem, and our forces overseas are needed more than ever before. We're confident that here in Britain we can restore law and order with our existing level of troops.
But surely, Mr. Charles, this can't be the case. Many people see the creation of this buffer zone as separating London and parts of the south of England a clear indication that the military have in fact lost control and that millions of people are being abandoned.
That is absolutely not the case. We've installed martial law across the whole of the south of England. There's a 24-hour curfew in place. People have to stay at home for their own safety's sake until this problem has passed.
Now, we've had unconfirmed reports that all military units and emergency service personnel currently operating south of this buffer zone have in fact been ordered to withdraw. Now, how can you possibly expect to maintain a curfew if any kind of law enforcement has been withdrawn from this area?
Gangs of rioters in their thousands are swarming through the streets of London at the moment. They're destroying buildings, they're attacking people indiscriminately. At the moment, we're in a strong position to stop the violence in its tracks. We've got the buffer zone in place, and that acts as a vacuum between the rioters and the rest of the country, enabling us to control and contain the violence, which is our highest priority.
It's widely thought that these riots actually began in London. Now, if this was the case, surely swift intervention by the military working in conjunction with the emergency services would have been enough to contain the situation and keep it limited to London. However, we now know that London has been cordoned off by the military and no attempt whatsoever is being made to intervene. And in fact, to restore law and order in the capital other than that already being made by London-based emergency services.
Before this widespread violence reached Britain, dozens of other countries affected with similar outbreaks of lawlessness and rioting, including the United States, decided to impose a national health hazard, and they attempted to quarantine the affected areas. Having information about this in advance of any rioting breaking out in this country, we decided because of that to proceed with caution when approaching the problem.
I'm sorry, Mr. Charles. I'm unsure exactly what it is you're saying. Are you trying to say to me that we're dealing with a breakdown of law and order, or is this in fact a pandemic?
We're not sure at the moment.
Okay, well, I think we'll have to end it there. Thank you for your time. I'm told we're now going live to our military correspondent.
I'm just outside the town of Sandy in Bedfordshire. Sandy has a population of about 12,000 people. About 4 hours ago, the army moved into the town, including the troop I'm currently attached to, in order to aid the police in this evacuation.
Well, what's happening there now? Has the evacuation been successful?
Well, as you can see, the town's directly behind me. The military have left the town and withdrawn to one of the outlying hills, so it appears as though the evacuation has been abandoned.
Well, do you know why? Are those gunshots we can hear in the background?
Yes, we've been hearing sporadic gunfire for the past 20 minutes, so it seems as though the pandemic has reached us here and the military are engaging those affected.
Victoria, do you think the military will be able to contain the situation?
Well, as I said earlier, the population here is 12,000. The military detachment assigned to the town was 50 or 60 soldiers, most of which we lost contact with at this stage, so it doesn't look good. We're now deep inside the buffer zone, which is a huge blow to the Army's efforts to stop the spread of the virus.
What's happening now?
I think some of the soldiers have just withdrawn from the town. Let's see if we can go and have a closer look. I think they're down here. We just need to get closer.
Victoria, can you hear me?
On me! On me! Get up the stairs! No! Oh my god! Oh, stop! Oh my god!
Well, it appears we've lost contact with our military correspondent. We'll try and pick that one up again later just to see how the evacuation is getting on. We apologise for any technical difficulties. In the past hour, the Home Secretary has held an emergency press briefing at a secret location in order to clarify the government's stance on the continuing violence.
As you have been watching on today's emergency news broadcasts, there has been widespread public disorder and rioting across large parts of the south of England. The situation appears to be a repetition of the civil disorder which has been widely reported across America, Asia, and many European countries in the last few days. The cause of this widespread violence is as yet unknown, but it's become apparent that some form of virus may be responsible. Reports from hospitals in the affected areas are so far reporting large increases in people being admitted with severe injuries attributed to the widespread violence and rioting, suggesting that whatever the cause of this breakdown in law and order, the risk to health from the virus is minimal. At this exact moment, a team of government scientists are on their way to the affected areas to carry out further investigations into the causes and origin of the outbreaks. In order to contain the escalating situation and maintain law and order, we have declared a national state of emergency, implemented martial law in a number of areas, and introduced a curfew effective from 7 p.m. tonight. We urge members of the public to comply with these measures for their own safety and to assist the emergency services with the aid of the military to control the situation. We would like to reassure the public that this is a short-term measure which will be revoked as soon as the situation stabilises. Details of all areas will be shown following this statement. If you are in one of the worst affected areas and concerned for your own safety, we have set up emergency evacuation centres under the control of the armed forces. Details of these centres will also be shown after this statement. I'm sorry.
We have been issued by the government a map detailing all affected areas and a comprehensive list of all evacuation centres for those areas where the military are attempting to evacuate people. These will be displayed shortly, and viewers should look out for their area if they reside in the southeast. We'll shortly be going live to a press conference by the Centre for Medical Disease Control. But first, we had this video, which has been submitted to us through our website earlier. Unfortunately, due to the amount of traffic we've been receiving, our website is temporarily down. However, we are working to get our online services working again as quickly as we can.
Has he gone outside?
Yeah.
I can see him. Get back inside. What is he doing? Idiot.
Help! Help!
They're coming, get back inside! Oh, f***ing hell.
Is he back in?
Yeah. Oh, they know we're in here now.
Come open the window. Come open the window.
We now go to an emergency press conference by the Centre for Medical Disease Control.
It was announced earlier today that government scientists have been dispatched to affected areas to conduct further tests. Once again, we urge members of the public in affected areas to avoid hospitals and not to seek medical attention, other than that provided at the nearest evacuation center set up by the military. At this point, we believe a virus is responsible for the violence. We've had several confirmed reports of victims being declared clinically dead by doctors attending the scene and then returning to life within minutes of this diagnosis with seemingly murderous rage. Adding to this, it appears as though some victims reported to have died from natural causes. The number of cases of this so-called reanimation is now thought to be in the thousands, and we believe it is now spread beyond the military's buffer zones. Anyone infected with this virus will attack those unaffected on sight. I can only urge members of the public to stay in their homes and avoid contact with anyone you suspect carrying this virus. At this point, we do believe the only method of contraction is through direct contact with an infected individual. Many of those patients admitted to the hospitals or who have reported to evacuation centers have been carrying terrible injuries, the most common being bite marks and deep lacerations. So at this point, we believe the virus is spread through either the blood or saliva of the affected.
We seem to have lost it there. I'm sure you would have found that announcement as shocking and unbelievable as I did, although events we have witnessed within the last few hours seem undeniable. We've had reports that people all over the southeast are forming vigilante groups in an attempt to defend their homes against these violent mobs, although the military have condemned people taking part in such activities and stated that anyone caught outside in areas where martial law has been declared, or any person found to be engaging in public disorder, will be met with deadly force. One of our reporters recorded this interview in the last few hours.
Do you think what you're doing is right? What do you mean? Taking the law into your own hands. We're just keeping people safe. By killing other people. Look, if we don't kill them, they'll kill us. It's that simple. These rioters won't stop for nothing. Don't you think you should leave it to the police to deal with this situation? Yeah, but they don't. There's been so many times where we've been there and the police ain't. Do you not think you're adding to the violence? No. We're just protecting our community. We don't go out looking to start trouble. If anything, we prevent it. There's been reports of groups such as yours forming all over the country. What do you think of this? Well, it just shows that the authorities can't be relied on. It's good to know that people are taking a stand. The government are calling you vigilantes. Well, they can call us what they want. We're not going to stop until this is over.
We have just received another video clip submitted through our website, which is now active again. We believe it was taken from inside a rescue station somewhere outside London in the southeast and contains graphic images and scenes of a violent nature.
Leave now! This is a restricted area! I told you to get out! Leave now! Move! Out! 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 Turn that camera off! Get back!
It would appear from this report that the military have lost control and have largely been overrun in many areas of the southeast. We've also been receiving reports that a large percentage of evacuation centres and rescue stations in the southeast and in the military buffer zone have now been compromised. We have at this stage lost contact with most of our reporters and are relying heavily on information submitted to us through our website and online services. We have this footage submitted to us in the last few minutes by one of our viewers. This also contains scenes of a violent nature.
Get back inside!
Please help my daughter.
Don't come any closer!
My daughter needs help.
Hey!
Some truly shocking scenes there from an anonymous sender. It appears as though the military high command charged with restoring law and order have lost control of some elements of the armed forces, who are meting out their own justice on innocent members of the public. We've been unable to contact the Ministry of Defence to question them over the accountability of the military or for an answer to this shocking video. We're now joined by Professor Peter Kentworth, a former government advisor on emergency internal affairs. Peter, in light of events in the past 24 hours, do you think the government has handled the ongoing crisis well?
Well, I think the key to the question, Richard, is 24 hours. This epidemic has gripped the whole of the south of England in just over 24 hours. I mean, this situation is unprecedented. We now know that we are facing a global pandemic which has affected hundreds of countries all around the world in just over 2 or 3 days. No country has anything in place like this to halt something that has spread this fast.
Yes, but we've experienced epidemics and pandemics before. So what's so different about this? I mean, how has it spread so fast?
Well, I'm afraid I can't actually answer that. We have had very little information about the virus, apart from a few key symptoms, which are quite frankly horrifying to say the least. We're not even sure if it is a virus. Look, if you look back at past pandemics such as swine flu, it took months for it to spread around the globe. And vaccines and treatments were available. I mean, this has simply spread too fast for anything like this to be put in place.
When you talk of horrifying symptoms there, what are you referring to exactly?
Well, it's obvious that the mass rioters and lawless mobs that are being widely reported in our major towns and cities are people affected with the virus. However, we have had reports that the virus kills people within hours, depending on the method of contraction.
Are you suggesting then that the virus has differing effects on different people?
Well, I think the only conclusion that we can draw is that every single one of these rioters has contracted the virus and died from it as a result. These people are coming back from the dead and are attacking the living.
Surely that's impossible. I mean, you're saying that some form of virus, which estimates say has killed over 1 million people in the UK alone, is making the dead return to life.
Well, we have seen undeniable evidence in the last 24 hours. People who have witnessed these savage attacks are in no doubt as to what is happening. Also, several countries have reported this as fact, including the United States. I mean, there simply is no other conclusion.
Do you think the military will be able to contain the situation?
Well, I think after the events we've witnessed today, at the speed that the virus is spreading, despite the military's best efforts, I'm afraid it will spread to the rest of the country within 48 hours.
Peter, what would you say to worried members of the public watching this at home? I mean, what should they do?
Well, what we need is for everyone to stay inside, no matter how serious the situation may get. This curfew should be implemented nationwide to slow down the speed of the virus. However, widespread panic has set in and people are trying to escape the chaos, which is only going to speed up the spread of the virus. Look, I'd say this to everyone out there. Please, do not...
Oh, God! No!
Richard?